So, Stan, I want to welcome you to the summit. When I was trying to find someone that had successfully, for several years, dominated the college scene, I couldn't think of anyone better than you. I know you do probably 40 to 50 events a year, primarily focused around colleges, universities, and small associations. And most people, they see the cool pictures of, hey, this person's in a room with 40,000 people, right? But they're not doing that 70 times a year, right?
Right.
And, oh man, I want to get paid $40,000 a gig. Unless you're famous, you're going to do two of those a year. But you've made a living in this area that everybody wants to kind of, I'm bigger than that. And you're like, cool, go be bigger than that. I'm going to eat here. So I wanted to bring you on just to talk about the importance of universities and alternative stages. So small associations, things of that sort. So can you give us a little bit of your superhero origin story, man? How did Stan become Stan the man, the world's greatest speaker, Pearson?
Million percent. I always knew I would be great. No, I'm just kidding. I worked for a consulting firm, did all that stuff, but before then, I worked for a university. I worked for student activities office as an associate director. I reviewed talent, I hired talent, I made relationships with talent and agents, and that allowed me to understand that side of the business. I even went to conferences that were showcasing conferences that allowed people who were, in this case, speakers, other talent as well, kind of reveal themselves and showcase in front of potential buyers. And it was there I saw like, hey, I think I could do this because as a part of my job working at the university, I was already presenting. But I also realized it wasn't just presenting it on campus is not the same as getting paid to speak or creating or someone having an expectation once they're cutting a check for you. So while I was there, I booked good speakers. While I had their ear, I talked to them, learned a little bit of the game, thought about what I was good at, what I could leverage. And long answer to a short question, initially, diversity was, now I feel like most people feel like they're different in some way, are diversity speakers. But that was my first platform. But as a pro salsa dancer, I used, my salsa dancing to create my first platform or branding. And that's how I kind of launched into the paid speaker world. And I couldn't be happier. I'm really excited. And I think this year is, we're doing this. It's celebrate 15 years full time in the college space primarily. So yeah, that's kind of the origin story. That's the beginning. There are some villains in there. We won't get into them though.
Well, I mean, I didn't know you were a professional salsa dancer. I always see you dancing. I'm like, all right, I got you. We're gonna see you on Dancing with the Speakers instead of
Yeah.
Dancing with the Stars.
Hey, we're on to something. We may be on to something.
No, that's pretty cool because I think now it kind of changes my perspective about the conversation because I didn't know that you had the experience of booking people also. So
Oh,
your perspective is really shaped not only by what you're doing, but that was shaped by what you did, meaning you knew what the person at the university was looking for and you knew how to approach them the right way. So I think that should give people comfort to know that you're not just giving something that only works for Stan. You're going to give them advice and a perspective from the person that was booking them, right? Who would be booking them at the university.
and all the advice and guidance and mentorship that I got before I could approve paying someone three, five, or $10,000 to come speak. So it was like it was learning what that process is, vetting folks. So as you said, it's not like, oh, opinion. I think this is what they do. It's like, no, this is what they do. And after building relationships with people, we're still in the college space who book talent for the last 15 or 20 years. I'm still privy to a lot of the information that, that they share and that they discuss.
No, that's cool, man. So what is if you were the booker right now for a university, right? Go back to 15 years ago when you were booking people.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that the speaker can do to turn you off? Not
Ooh.
to get booked. You see how I switched that around on you?
Yeah, I
Because
like
everybody go, well, all you got to do is, my mom used
that.
to say, if somebody say, all you got to do is you going to jail. So when your friends start saying, all you got to do is She's like, y'all going to jail, right? so, so let's not go down that path. Let's take the opposite path of what not to do. What's the thing that can turn off the event planner?
In the college space specifically, I'd say like being too generic, like just talking to someone who is an experienced buyer, saying, "Oh, I'm a motivational speaker," is not gonna get it done. Anybody who books speakers regularly, like they know that there needs to be more than that. Not having what we call learning outcomes. There has to be some learning outcomes. And if you don't know what that is, then they know that you don't know what you're talking about. And the third one is literally not having any proof that you are who you say you are. Obviously, most people assume that this happens, but I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that college bookers especially, they're clicking on something. They're clicking on links when they're not talking to their friends in the space who may have already booked you or talked to you. They want to know that you're speaking. That also means that just those talking head, front-facing videos, those are not enough unless you're famous, to get you booked to speak. They're just not.
No, I mean, you gave three things, which I think are incredible. Number one, they need to actually have the time on stage, right? And then they need documented proof of that time on stage. Not, oh, we're going to just do something from a Zoom call, or, I made some reels and they can see what I'm talking about from a reel. They need to see the audience, right? And even from there, they want to make sure that what are the kids going to take away from it? So you're not just going to come in and make them sad and then they didn't learn anything, or so there's some learning points they need to take away. So
can I share this last thing too?
Yeah.
Sharing from places of pain are not enough also. I think let's say in the generic motivational world, that might work. For entrepreneur spaces, that might work. But when you're talking to colleges and universities, like this is like the doom and gloom origin story isn't exactly going to get you, again, unless you're famous, that's not going to sell a person on why they should book you. Because guess what? If my audience is brand new students, if my audience is first generation college students, if my audience or someone, it's their first time ever being to a college, the last thing those folks might want to hear is someone else's horror story, even if because we don't know what happens on the other side of their story. So just coming from that place of pain, like that will really hurt your pursuit for paid college speaking.
Dude, that is a gem, because a lot of speaker coaches, that's what they teach. Get into your story and tell all the pain and how this crazy thing happened to you. And people will book you to come tell them that. And I'm like, who signs up for a depression talk? Like, yo, I'm about to get them $100 to go be depressed for the next 2 hours. I'm not signing up for that crap, right?
Not the cool thing, but the deal about that is most folks are not very good at bringing people out of the dark. That's the other problem. There's this false sense of excellence in the speaking world because anyone can do it. So we assume that everyone's good. It's not like the NBA. When people in the NBA, you're like, oh, they're good because they made it there. But ultimately, there are folks that, let's say they do that doom and gloom, that story, but there's a way to turn back on the light that most folks don't know. And by leading with doom and gloom, you really just go from doom and gloom to do what I say. And again, that is not going to get it done in the college space.
No, that's a huge thing. Because I'm thinking like, okay, when I was 19 and someone comes in and they telling this goofy story, I'm like, dude, when is this going to be over? We got all these girls in here, bro. I'm trying to, if I'm looking at the AKAs and the Deltas, and I'm like, no, I want to see them stroll. I want to hear this knucklehead up here talking this crap, right? So
something, right? Having fun anyway.
Well, I mean, but you're competing with entertainment, right? So it's almost as if it makes sense why you incorporated the salsa thing, because you have to be more of an entertainer than a speaker. It's like an entertainer with a message. And I'm not saying that they need a stick or something like, oh yeah, I got to go and break dance for people. You don't have to do that, but you gotta be interesting and entertaining is what I hear you saying. You can't just say, I was like you someday. That I don't think that works.
1,000,000%. And this is what I always share. And I tell people, if anybody tells you any different, I don't care if they're your coach, mentor, they don't know what they're talking about. You must engage, entertain, and educate in that order. Engage, entertain, and educate. And to your amazing point, being entertaining doesn't mean, playing an instrument or dancing or singing. It's being interesting. If you can be interesting, you can be entertaining. And that is what you have to dive into. And be willing to spend a little extra time engaging and entertaining. We already know that people can't maintain or understand or even remember 100% of what's being said. So why spend all your time trying to be the person that knows it all? I think most folks have had a professor or a teacher. They were brilliant, but they couldn't teach a classroom. And that's because they spent all the time trying to prove how smart they were. And the same thing happened with speakers.
So you mentioned 3 E's: engage, entertain, and educate, right?
Yeah.
So if my crutch has been people relate to my story, what if I couldn't tell my story? You see what I mean? What if I couldn't tell my story of pain? How do I engage? So I want to remove the crutch and say, they tell you, hey, you can come talk, but don't talk about that. What do you do? Like, how do you engage at that point? I think that's a great place to start.
It's like any great presentation is able to make it more about the audience than the person. The way I start every keynote, I would say 9 out of 10 of them is I ask people how they're doing on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being, oh my gosh, make it stop. 10 being, I feel absolutely amazing and I couldn't be better. On the count of 3, everybody raise their hand, or depending on how much control chaos someone, I'll just say, yell out the number on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Boom. And then from there, I might pull a 5 and I'll tell people, if you're feeling like a 1, that's okay. Let's talk. Anyone with their arms crossed, I know you're like a -5. That's cool too. And I'm willing to go, hey, so what brought us to a 5 today? What makes us feel like a 10? Now, if you're more of an introvert, maybe you want to lean on the 10. Maybe you want to lean on the 8 because they're more likely to talk about it. And then from that, you can easily talk about, hey, for those 1s and 2s that didn't want to raise your hand or you're unsure, these are some 1 and 2 moments I've had. And it could be very general, generic, bad morning type stuff. So the person doesn't feel alienated. And then you can move from there. Maybe you touch on that part of your story, but you don't lean on it. You don't spend too much time on it. You just touch it and then you keep it moving.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the engaging with an icebreaker is what I hear you saying. That icebreaker doesn't have to be exactly yours, but they can come up with a different one. They can Google speaking icebreakers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You're crazy if you do not. You are crazy if you start off a keynote presentation, especially for college students or even youth, without some kind of icebreaker. It cannot be you get introduced and go, hey, I'm Stan again, like they said. So rule number 1, like they will eat you alive. And I think one of my favorite audiences are community colleges. I love the community college audience and even youth. But ultimately, those audiences, the youth space to college, they're very honest. And if you are not prepared, they're going to let you know along the way, if not certainly afterwards, how you could have done better.
Dude, no, that's a big deal. I think the icebreaker is super duper duper important because engage is an interesting word to use because I think it has to be interactive in some way, right? And that's what you mean by engage, like interact with the crowd a bit, right? Because they're listening to professors or listening to their teacher preach at them, tell them, making them feel stupid all the time because oh man, I forgot to read that. Like I've never been to a class where I was like, man, I'm on top of this. This professor makes me feel good. They always make me feel dumb at some point, right?
That's a fact.
I can only imagine as a speaker, you want to be the opposite of that, right? It's like the professor is proving how smart he is, right? I want to come in to tell you how much potential you have, right?
Can I say, and also sometimes I feel like it's a control thing, but also 2 things, a lack of expertise and in the speech delivery process and a bit of insecurity. Because also you're saying once you engage in that way, you're handing over the keys to strangers. And if you have not built up a good enough relationship, will they give the keys back? Once there's this controlled chaos, how do I get them back focused? So that's why a lot of folks might experience speakers who never give the audience a chance to be a part of what's happening. And they're missing out on an opportunity. Again, that's why it's a skill set and not just something that anybody does. No one says, no one goes into a specialist or a surgeon goes, oh, I could do that. It's a skill set. And I believe the same thing is true with speaking. It is a skill set. It's a specialization that not everyone can do. And I feel like when people understand that better, they'll be better on and off stage.
I think that's incredible. You made me think about something really quickly. And when I was a financial advisor, I found that giving financial advice was one of the hardest professions. And the reason being is that most people have dealt with money their whole life. So like my daughter, whenever she leaves the house, she says, Daddy, necesita dinero, right? Papi, necesita dinero. Every time she's had money in her hands since she was 2, right? So we've been talking since we were 2. So it's like, well, I know how to speak. I've been talking. Yeah, you speak English, but you don't know how to be a public speaker. You've had money, but you're not wealthy, right? It's kind of the same thing where because we've had access to it, we think we know what to do with it, right? What do you kind of see what I mean? Because that's what came to mind when I was a financial advisor. They'd be like, yo, man, I make enough money. I do this. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have any. Right. But it's because I make more money than you. Yeah, but you don't save more than me. Right. And it was these things that were like, oh, because you have it, you don't want to hear my advice because you think, you see what I mean? Because it's an interesting parallel when I think about it.
I love it. Number one, that's why I'm glad you had Pro Speaker Summit. I'm also glad for those who are registering, because that means that they believe they're trying to learn. They're in a space of learning and open-mindedness. I have become, I don't know if it's grumpy, get off my lawn stand or what have you, but I've become a bit protective of the industry because I know there's folks that's like, yo, I'm here. Yeah, pass me the ball. It's like, I ain't seen you practice. I don't know if you can shoot. I'm not passing you the ball. There's a lot of that. So I'm working on that, because I am welcoming. I'm certainly a different, let's say, speaker than I am coach or trainer, mentor of those coming in. I'm very warm overall, but yeah,
I think coaching the internet has changed the meaning of a coach, right? And let me give you what I mean by that. Did you play sports in any organized high school or whatever? What'd you play?
Yeah, basketball and football. Track too,
right. So did your basketball teacher, if they were different, if a different person, your basketball coach, did he talk to you differently than your math teacher?
Yeah.
And I found out why, right? The math teacher is paid to give you the information. If you don't study for the test, they don't care. The basketball coach is paid on outcomes. If they don't win, he loses his job, right? But in the internet, the rabbit has the gun because the student, if he don't like the coach, he stops paying the coach. So the coach can't coach as hard as he needs to coach to get the most out of the student.
Golly, that's good.
Do you see what I mean? So it's like I can't coach him because he's going to leave my mastermind and I need this mastermind money to pay this. So if he don't get to where he's going to go in 12 months, I just tell him, man, you just got to stick in it for another year. And then I get another year of him paying me, even though he's not going to get results because I'm not really coaching him to tell him to send the pitches he needs to send or I can go into it, man. I don't want to. This is your hour, but
that's so true. It's like like coaching in the NCAA right now with NIL and stuff. Like you can only do so much but then the person never achieved their true potential.
The NBA. It's like the coaching in the NBA. If the player LeBron James is making $56 million this year, and the coach of the team is making $4 million this year. If LeBron goes talk to the owner, that coach loses his job. It just happens, right? Because the player is locked in for $400 million over the next 5 years, right? It's like, dude, who are they gonna listen to? Like, if I quit, they got a problem. If you quit, they'll find another one of you tomorrow as a coach. So I think that's one of the reasons why you're probably protective because there are a lot of people over promising. Hey, sign up for my speaking course, and in 6 months, you're going to make six figures, quit your job, even if you've never talked, even if you don't have any leads, even if you've never been on stage. The average speaker budget is $26,000.
The average speaker paid $10,000. That infuriates me. Because then the other thing is there are folks that don't think that they can like do the thing or that they can make it. It's like, no, the first lie you're being told is that you should be charging $8,000 for no, or the average fee for a college or is not $8,000. It's not. And for the longest, it's for the last 20 years that I've been around the speaking industry, the average fee has never been $7,000 or $8,000 for a college speaker. Unless, as you said, unless you were famous. And even famous folks, and we're talking I think this is a number of years ago when Jersey Shore popped. I think Snooki had started speaking. Maybe she got 30K at a college and everyone's minds were blown, but she was top tier famous, as reality TV kicked. But this, the very lie that a lot of these programs tell, it just creates an issue right away. And I don't mind people like working and pushing themselves, but that's just a bold-faced lie. And I'll tell you this, it's also frustrating for those who book speakers because they know what the average fee is. So when this person who they don't know from Adam comes in and they're new to them, tell them their fee is $6,000 or $8,000 or people, it's a lie from the gate. But I also know there's some programs they're huge programs and people feel handcuffed and aren't able to, speak truth to power in that way. And so they just kind of keep the lie to themselves and then they just disappear, never to be seen on the stage again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate state of the industry. And I don't want to get off of what we were talking about because I think that the engaging part was where we left off. Right, because you and I will go in about the industry forever. We'll save it for the end. But I want to make sure the person that's following, they understand how important it is to build the skill of engaging the audience, right? And then after that, they need to be interesting or entertaining, right?
Yes.
And can you go a little bit further into that? Because everybody can't salsa dance, bro. So do I got to bring out my beatboxing skills?
Hey, you might want to use that. There are folks that do that. I think that often this is a bit of an aside, but if you're not funny, I think the best thing you can do is lead by telling the audience that you're not funny. That's a hang up that people have. They feel like they have to make someone laugh. It's like, hey, just heads up, I'm not very funny. So if you expected to laugh, my apologies in advance. That usually will get just a little bit of chuckle. They're on your side and then you can move on about your life. You don't have to be worried about trying to get that laugh and just moving on. The coolest place you've ever traveled, the greatest thing you've ever overcome, the coolest person you've ever met. It doesn't matter if they are a notable celebrity or just a cool person you met on the street that provided this awesome interaction that someone else can connect to because guess what? They too have met a random person on the street. And I often let people know from an entertainment standpoint, you have to think about TV shows. Not every TV show has dancing or singing or, someone playing an instrument, but they're still entertaining nonetheless. So how can it be interesting? How can you ask interesting questions of your audience? Because then that leans them in. So anything that can help your audience lean in is entertainment. That's how we do it. And aside from that, just think about everything that you got. Like if you had to make a list of everything that you have or everything that you've overcome, the cool places you've traveled, make that list. And in that list, there are some entertaining things you can talk about, discuss, or bring up.
Yeah. No, I mean, every show that's on TV that's entertaining is based around a story. So I've never met a person who didn't know a funny story or something funny that happened to them or that happened to someone else that had a lesson in it, right? So I can engage the audience. I can tell interesting stories, which is the entertainment part at the base, be interesting, right? In my stories. But as long as those stories do the third thing, which is educate, right? Talk about that part, the third one, which is educate.
Because what does all this mean? So if there are 5 points, be creative, be your own best friend, be present, be consistent, be resilient. If that's if all that gets you to how to do these things, that's what the first two have to pour into. So my recent book, my latest book now that I'm about to launch, it's, 7 dynamic shifts to achieve peace, love, health, wealth, and happiness. I'm really leaning on the idea of having peace, love, health, wealth, and happiness. So in the beginning, when I'm talking about how we feel, when I'm talking about the movement or music or playing, all that is going to then pour into how do we get to understand and define peace, love, health, wealth, and happiness. That's the part that we educate. That's the part that you know so much of, that you can wake up out of a dead sleep, comatose sleep, and be able to speak on those things that you can simply educate some more on quickly. And my advice to you watching is make it 3 to 5 points, no more than 5. If you're doing a retreat, if you are doing a multiple day conference or something like that, sure, then lean into 7, 9, but the whole 101 ways to XYZ, trying to get that into a keynote is a mistake. I have seen someone try to get in 100 ways to whatever. It was like a positive relationship in a showcase. In 15 minutes, someone tried to talk about 50 to 100 ways. They went through all of their slides. I'm not exaggerating. It is a mistake. Think about 3 to 5. Breakfast, we think in threes: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, morning, noon, and night, or 5. There are 5 days of the working week. Again, you heard be creative, be your own best friend, be present, be consistent, be resilient. The sauce to life is supporting, acting, learning, striving, and accepting. Now, peace, love, health, wealth, and happiness. Like, it's so much easier for people to pick up what you're putting down when they're not overwhelmed with 101 ways to do anything. So educate, but make sure when you educate and build in those learning outcomes that they are 3 to 5. Trust me now. And if it's that good, write a book on it and then give it away or have someone buy it.
No, I think that's really good, man. I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, these are gems, because when we think about how we learn things as kids, I learned a lot from Bugs Bunny. I learned a lot from the Roadrunner, and they never had a slideshow with a bunch of bullet points, right? They say more is caught than taught, right? So if we think of Aesop's fable, and this is a great example, Aesop's fable. Most people have heard that term, but they're like, which one is that? But then if I say the turtle and the hare, right? They're like the turtle and the rabbit. They're like, oh yeah, I know that. They got into a race. But you see how all I did was change the name of it and it brought back to what it was, right? We may not know it as Aesop's fable, but in that story, there are a lot of lessons that a person can pick up, and they didn't have to bring up a slideshow. So you can engage people with the story. That story is the entertainment, and then the lessons are can be embedded in that story. I love this comedian named Ali Sadiq.
Yeah.
Ali Sadiq is the best storytelling comedian ever, right? If you think of your favorite comedians, no matter who they are, George Carlin, Bernie Mac, they were the best storytellers, right? And the reason why I like story is not because it's my last name, but it's because it allows me to imagine me being that character. Like, oh, I remember that, right? Like, I'll tell you a funny story. You want to hear a really bad story, Stan, right? So me and my guys, we were at the mall one day, and you go to the mall, they got the food court, right? They got Sbarro and they got Panda Express, right? They got all of these different things, and they had just opened up this new Mexican restaurant. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get me a chimichanga from over here. Boy, that was the worst decision of my life. So I think we're like sophomores in college, and we're driving home, and I'm like, yo, I got to go to the bathroom, bro. But we're nowhere near a house, nothing. We ain't close to nothing. And I'm like, yo, what's the name of live around the corner? I'll go to their house, right? But no, I don't have to get into the gory details of what I was afraid of happening. It didn't happen, but I was afraid of that happening. Every meme of somebody in a similar situation, a video of somebody in a similar situation on Instagram, my friends who were in the car with me that day send them to me. This daily. I get the daily, oh, pull over, pull. I get those videos on a daily basis from my friends. And the moral of the story is, like TLC said, don't go chasing waterfalls. I should have stuck to the Panda Express and the Sabaros I was used to. You know, I went over there and got that chimichanga, and my stomach started salsa dancing, and I was like, "Oh, this is bad. This ain't." I turned into Pops on Friday, boy. It was bad. But so that story, someone can imagine that, right? And we feel the pain of the person in the Instagram video because we've all been that close to the door and fumbling for our keys trying to get in the house. Like, exactly. So we know, like, story engages. And I think it covers the three things you talked about. It engages, it entertains, right? And I believe, what do they say? 90% of the truth is said in jest, right? So it's like, oh, you laughed at that because you probably been in that situation. You never talked about it, but you're like, yeah, I remember that one time that almost happened to me. Or you can think of another friend that it may have almost happened to. And that's it. That's the part that's caught the lesson right underneath that, dude. Like I'm still in this. That three E's. I'm not gonna use it that way, but I'm gonna apply it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna apply it to my ability to tell more stories because it has to be engaging. It needs to be entertaining, but I don't need to give them the slides of, hey, don't get the chimichanga, don't do this. Step two. If you eat the chimichanga, find a bathroom at the mall you're at.
Within this radius. And I always tell people, like, don't ask for permission. I mean, don't ask for permission to tell your story. I think people should just kind of they should just wake up in your story. So even if just having like you just did, like having a regular conversation, then we go into the story. It's like, oh, snap, I'm here now. I think that's really important. I think that just adds to the mystique and the engagement, folks. Oh, snap, I got to catch up. And that's a part of, going back to like the cycle of consistently engaging folks is really, really helpful. This is random, but also matching energy. Like a couple times I've heard speakers speak that tell me that they say on stage that they're high energy, but their energy isn't high. And it's okay. But you just told the audience, I have a big spirit, a lot of personality, but your whole time you're just speaking like this. And the audience picks up on those things, either subconsciously or actively, like, where's the good stuff for you? Again, so just matching what you say with your actions is really important. It seems elementary, but it's really not. We all have to be reminded of that.
The energy thing is interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because most of us in our normal lives, Stan, we're just boring, right? And we turn it on for 10 to 15 seconds, right? And those people that, if you're around me for 3 hours, you'll get these 15-second bursts of Ron with a joke every once in a while. But I'm not just running around with one-liners, right? So we think that becomes like when we have to condense it to an hour on stage, to have that adrenaline for an hour. Not only is it uncomfortable at the beginning, but it's exhausting afterwards. So it's like we think we're turned up, but to the audience, they're like, dude, what's special about this? But you really got to really ratchet it up. If you're going to go there, you got to go there because your normal life is really your normal thing. It's just boring. Like,
Like I try to think about TV, even in the small, because it's a performance. It's even speaking as an entertainment business to some degree. So if I'm telling a story about bad breakup and how we've all been through one, while I'm telling the story, like I drop down to one knee, I'm pleading to the universe about like even a small bend of the knee, if you will, is still being activated and again, engaging and entertaining. Like this guy's, he's sometimes extra. Yeah, but that's entertaining. Dropping down to a knee for the same story I could have told standing up. Like it's like little small things that I often like encourage people to, tap into that alter ego from time to time. Again, for the entire time is a whole other ball of wax. But from time to time, just tapping into those small things that you can, make a bit of theater along with giving a message is going to help. And it honestly, it makes the session or the keynote more fun for the speaker, because sometimes people like, so saying, if you give the same talk 100 times a year, or for the Kevin Harts or the other, folks, or the Chappelles or whomever are touring regularly, like there's some things that I think make what they do a little bit more fun, because they are acting them out. That kind of kills the monotony of, just giving the same stand and deliver program every time.
You make me think of something that I think is extracurricular, right? And I'll tell you what I mean by this. A lot of speakers, outside of having a speaker coach, they haven't done any other type of stage presence training, right? So when I was a sales financial advisor and I was selling investments and insurance, we had to take improv classes, right? Now, why? Because I needed to learn how to disagree with my customer without arguing with my customer, right? So you learn yeah and or yeah but. You learn these different things on how to agree with people and improvise and to continue the conversation. We used to always say confrontation doesn't have to be hostile, right? And those improv classes improved my ability to listen and improved my ability to and I do a lot of that. In my summary, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that. And this is what I thought. Because I want to continue the conversation. I don't want to fight with Stan. You're on my, we invited you here. I didn't invite you here to argue. I want to, how can I, dude, this was, I get that, right? So learning to do that, what type of classes should a person be looking to take to improve that stage presence? Because the proper pause in the right story, the proper smile at the right moment in the story, all of those things change the emotions of the room. How does a person, and you're one of the best at it. Like I told you that before, like I see your reels and I'm like, wait a minute, I would have never opened this reel this way, but he opened it and then it took me through this maze and I got the point of why it opened that way. Like I know why you started the reel that way by the time I get to the end. How does someone learn that? And I don't know if they can learn it from you, if you teach that, or if you can recommend some different things, because it's keynoting in my mind is standing behind a podium, giving a talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm at a banquet and I got to give a talk, right? But most of the time I ain't behind a podium and I got a whole stage and people are eating. I'm the only one in there not eating and I got to talk.
Yeah. And make it not awkward that you are the only one not eating.
And you're hearing the clinks of the plates.
Some people are shit by that.
So how does a person improve those stage performance skills? The getting down on one knee, the pauses, all of those things.
And even pausing for making it easy for your photographer to take great photos of you. That's something that I've practiced over the years too. So they catch you in a position that you can use in the way that you smile. Certainly that, that's part of, what I help folks with. If you want to be, because I hate saying this, like you don't have to be good. I just think you should be. Okay, to be a paid speaker, you don't have to be good, but I absolutely think you should be. Practicing, I think in social settings, I practice some of these very things in my dramatic, approaches or my laughing. And I don't mean fake laughs. I mean just really enjoying a moment for what it is. Like getting to the truth. It's like comedy and acting, getting to the truth of the character. I'm really trying to be more true in how I engage people, conversations, and situations. Stage presence wise, something that I've done over the years, as mentioned obviously earlier, was salsa dancing. That helped with my stage presence and my posture and walking, being comfortable in silence. Also, Taekwondo the last few years I'm involved in. It's another kind of presentation. So it's not, when we have our forms, we're not rushing through our forms. No, it's step, step, step. There's a calmness, but strength that moves along. So get involved in other things that are going to test your ability to not just control your words, but also control your body. Sometimes when we're uncomfortable in our body, it's going to affect our voice. So I'm comfortable walking quietly during a presentation and letting there be silence for 10 seconds while I look out. that also creates engagement, which then turns to be a little entertainment, what's happening on, then I can educate moving on because I have the undivided attention. So in social settings, just for folks to really get to the truth of moments and not feel so wrapped up in being cool that they miss out on the seriousness or the laugh or the talk. And then outside of that, take some dance classes, do improv. I think every speaker should do improv or do open mic comedy, period. That should be a non-negotiable before you get your butt up on any stage outside, especially asking to be paid. Go up in front of strangers that you do not know and try to entertain them. It's a superpower, and it really lets you know how real it is. I think most folks who heckle have never been heckled. Most folks who heckle from the sidelines have never been in the game because you have a brand new appreciation for what's happening on there. So those are a couple things I think people should absolutely do. Invest in that stuff. Pay to be in dance class, because then you're also engaging other people where you're forced to use some of the things we just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met a great speaker that wasn't putting in the time to get better. It's skill building, right? You got to learn to dribble with your right hand, learn to dribble with your left hand. You got to learn how to do all these different things. And I think that training is what makes them great. You said something at the beginning, which was you don't have to be good to get paid to speak. And I'll take that a step further, right? You don't have to be good to get paid to speak once by a host. You better be good if you want them to pay you to come back.
So real quick, two things I don't forget. The other thing is interview yourself and ask yourself questions you'll never be asked and answer them. It sounds a little nutty, but do that in the car at home by yourself. Now, you're right. You're 100% right. You can trick anybody into booking you one time. And that lightning in a bottle that happens. I see people in programs, they got paid to speak, but they never went back. And to my credit, I just celebrated my 10th anniversary, I believe, at emceeing a weekend long conference for the state of Virginia, 10 years in a row. And I think that is because it's not because obviously I think they like me now. We're like family, but I was good. And I keep trying to be good and wanting to be better. And to your point, you don't get repeat business because word does travel. Word does travel. So if you want to trick somebody, good luck. But I'm glad you added that, Ron. I'm glad you added
that. That's actually a riff on one of my favorite jokes I heard a comedian tell. And he says, you don't need a parachute to skydive once. You need a parachute to skydive twice.
I've never heard that before. I like that.
I mean, it's true. Like, you can skydive without a parachute once. You're just not going to come back, right?
That is a fact.
So a lot of times, hopping on stage and getting a gig or requesting a certain amount when you're not ready is just like jumping out of that plane without the parachute. And the parachute is your skills. So you got to get your skills up so that you can educate, entertain, engage, entertain, and educate. Engage, entertain, and educate. No matter whether it's at a university, because people are people, right? The younger kids are just going to be more rude to you. So if you can get good there, you can deal with the adults who have a little bit more patience in giving you a chance to get better, right? Or giving you a chance to develop into your story while you're on stage. Them kids gonna boo you, or they gonna start doing some other stuff.
Hostile. So environments are hostile. You're like older audiences, like they'll appreciate again those three or more because they'll see them happening. But younger audiences, they can be hostile, and if you go in there and disrespect them, it'll be tough. And the other thing is, you have to think, especially at colleges and universities, depending on what you're asking for, you could potentially be asking someone for a speaker fee that might be more than what they get paid per month. And in their mind, they think, wait, this for 1 hour, this person's getting paid more than I'm. That's sometimes the thought that goes into that for some folks. So imagine doing that and then being trash. Imagine them having to ask for approval to get that money to you and then you not delivering. They talk their Facebook groups full of higher ed professionals, and they have their conferences that they go to, and they will, this person, I've seen it. And that's what you absolutely have to be aware of, for sure. Don't rush to be paid. Get paid. I want you to get paid, but know what you're talking about when you ask someone to pay you.
Yeah. Have the skills, So that covers the university thing. In the last 10 minutes, can we talk about a little bit of some of how this applies also to associations? Because that Virginia thing, that wasn't a university, I assume. I think that was something outside of a university. That was more of an association or something of that sort. How do these same concepts transfer over to associations?
Associations will find, they're not every subject matter you want to speak on, there's an association. They add their vetting process as well. And I would say, especially now in the age of social media, that they're going to go there and make sure you are who you say you are. That's period. And you should very easily and willingly be able to send them proof that you are who you say you are. Let's say what I do. So obviously my social media is going to tell them that I speak. It's going to show them speaking. And if they get an email or ask an email from me, I'm actually sending them video of me speaking. If you have media of you speaking, maybe it's podcast, television, they get that too. And they also get, I have a PDF of testimonials that they'll get from the top. And I want to say, because when you're talking about associations, I don't always speak at associations where I have the expertise, but based on the subject, I'm meeting a need that they will have. And the great part about being a part of associations are the people who go there are their potential buyers there. So not every association is going to pay your full speaking fee or even your fee. However, most people that are in the association do have the ability to pay you. So going there and understanding, delivering a message that makes sense, and then closing them by making sure they understand how they can find you, book you, and pay you. And to me, those elements of engage, entertain, and educate still exist in your emails, in your social media. They must exist for an association to get your attention. Associations also like high profile folks to some degree. So if you're high profile or you can present that way, that will certainly make it easier for you to get their attention.
You mentioned having a gig for 10 years, right? And I'm sure that that's not the only one that you've done on multiple occasions. How important is the relationship? Because here's why I asked that, to kind of give you the frame. When people go to pitch themselves, they're usually pitching, hire me for this, instead of saying, hey, I think what you all are doing is interesting. I would love to build a relationship. I know I may not be available for this. You may not have space for this upcoming conference, but I want to build a relationship so that I can come back and help you all with anything you may need. How important are those relationships? Because I hear the hire me to sing and dance pitches, and I'm like, dude, don't send that. But then they're like, but this is what my coach told me. And I'm like, cool, man, send it.
Yeah. I remember, I think the first few years for sure, since I've sent them different things, but I know I sent like an edible arrangement the first time. I was, thankful. Hey, hello. Now I sent them the edible arrangement. But I'm sincere. I do my best to know how people are doing, how the family is, how work has been, because since I'm on the outside, they're also a little bit more willing to be transparent with me about what's going on behind, knowing that I'm not going to share that info, but they just need to get it off of them. So it's like, hey, how's work been? I'm really, how does it talk to me? So that they feel like there's some kind of outlet, but the relationships have been absolutely paramount. And to your point, like truly wanting to be just of service. So I do my best to over deliver, and that's by way of when I'm emceeing an event or a weekend or a day. It's like, hey, I'm here to fill in the gaps and I really want to make your life easier. So how can I do that while I'm here? That's a question that I ask repeatedly. And certainly when I'm, connecting for a speaking engagement, I often ask that, hey, what can I do to make this a great experience and make your life easier? And that's not something that most speakers are willing to ask because generally they're not going to overwork you. They don't want to overwork you or have you do too much. But that's something that's helped me a lot in building relationships, is like, really, like, how can I make your life easier? And then I do that.
No, that was cool, man. I think relationships are really, really, really important. And I think it's underestimated because a lot of speakers quit their jobs too soon.
Woo!
Right? So
Yeah.
they leave their job too soon because they have this promise of, I'm going to be a speaker and, the Lord will take care of me. And I'm like, yo, you can do this part time. Right?
I would
Until
advise. I think a lot of, as you know this too, a lot of gurus convinced a lot of people to quit their jobs before they should have, if at all. If at all. I mean, hell, if you have a job that's paying you 60 grand and you can make another 40 speaking, that ain't bad. That's, and not everybody is meant to be a full-time entrepreneur. Not everyone is meant to be a full-time speaker, because you know better than me and you've helped me out on this a million times. Not every speaker, most speakers are not very good at marketing. So now here you are, you thought because, your grandma or your friend told you you're great at speaking that now you're going to get paid for it full time. And that's not how it draws up at all. Because also then you are marketing or competing against folks like me, like a friend of ours, Odell, or like other powerhouse speakers. Like, that's who you're up against now. And you just quit your job. Like, nah, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought that up is they end up quitting their job and it puts them in desperation mode. Right. So they got to get paid right now.
Yeah.
Versus if you're going to an association and you may do that association gig for free because you know that they have a room full of consulting clients or, clients that can bring you in to do other talks and things of that sort. So you don't need the right now money. You're going to get the long-term money in a few months. And how do you you can bring in Stan with all this experience who's willing to come and talk for free, maybe, because he sees the bigger picture and he has the relationship and he's doing a favor I get hit up all the time with people that I've helped and they say, yo, I got an opportunity, man. I need a last minute person. Can you just hop on? Right. And I never say no. Right. And the reason being is because I don't need them to, well, how much you going to give me? What's my split? I don't care about that. I'm going to get on because I know that that's what they need. They wouldn't have called me if they didn't need me. Right.
That's great, man.
You see what I mean? It's like the reason why they invited you to come because they wanted you. You talked yourself out of it with the price because you didn't know how to get paid in other ways. And I think that that's a big deal. That's why I was asking about the relationship, because you did this summit for me. I didn't have to pay you to do this. And we didn't pay any of the speakers in doing this. And they said, well, how'd you get, you asked question was, how'd you get less? And how'd you get these folks? And I'm like, I just asked them. But I had done so much for them. Do you see what I mean? Like, my relationships are there. It's like, I just asked you, Stan, you want to do it? And you're like, of course. I want to go into the relationship thing again, even more. And the reason being is because I've seen short-term transactional things destroy long-term opportunities, right? And when you think about somebody, everybody's been in a situation where, you're like, man, I should call them, but I know they're going to want this. I don't even feel like being bothered with them, blah, blah, blah. And you just default to somebody else. How did you become the go-to person for 10 years? How does this I've seen certain universities that call you back all the time. How did you become that go-to person? What was I know you talked about relationships, but I'm talking about, that was surface. Get into it, man. Because the transactional stuff is killing the message.
Number one, I was, to your point a little bit earlier, I tell people if it works on you, it'll work for you. So the very thing that you do serve endlessly to make people go, actually, I want to help you. I want to help that person. Like, any way I can do it, any way I can help you, let me know. I think we almost always end our conversations that way. And that's a practice that everyone should have, just because it just, not only it makes you feel better, but you're also just getting sharper as a person. Something I also make sure people know is I want folks to know about my family. Now, in part, not they know what they need to know or what I want them to know, but when I'm going to speaking engagements, I'm away from the people that I love most in this world. But I want them to know, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am outside of being here. And people have seen me grow and speak since before I was married, since before I had kids. And so now we're all tied, we're connected in each other's lives. And then I regularly stay in front of them because there's a working relationship, there's a personal relationship, because they don't just care about me as the speaker anymore. They care about me as a human being and my view on the world and helping folks. And I care about them in the same way. And that is why they're more likely to call me back for the next 10 years or however long, as opposed to trying out someone new. And then beyond that is saying, hey, Stan, do you know any other speakers that we could also bring in for this particular, that begins to happen often. And I think, and I've said this, is in your programs, you should share who you are outside of the stage. Make it personal, because it is. If we're talking about changing lives, having impact on people, and wanting to save someone, that it's very personal. And I want them to know that this is how much I care. I want to share the people I love most with you. I'm getting to know you. You get to know me. And that's something that a lot of people, again, outside of the pain, if there's pain in their story, they usually just, if they're talking about family, they just share the painful part of it. But I want to share the love part of it, so that there's also a connection between them and myself, and all that's wrapped in love and a positive message, which they do want to see regularly. I think that's what I do. It's a simple adjustment that happens, that I do all the time. And I make sure that I ask for more. My dad always tells me, if I would have gotten everything, had I known I would have gotten everything I would have asked for, I would have asked for more. So I'm really intent about saying, hey, if you know anyone else that can benefit from this message, then please pass them along my information. I live my dream by doing this. And if you want to help me live my dream a little bit more, then please pass my name along. I ask that unapologetically. And to your point, because I do my best to serve at the highest level, they're happy to pass my name along. That's the other thing that folks don't do. I ask. I'm not too proud. It ain't begging, but if it were, I ain't too proud to beg. If you're old enough, if you know, you know.
No, that's pretty cool, man. So, no, we're a bit over what I agreed to 40 minutes. Like, we were like 40 minutes. Now we're at 58. Like, but they but this is what they need, right? It's the over delivering, right? And you made a commitment, but you're over delivering to them. As we wrap it up, what do we miss? What's the one thing? Is there something that we missed that you would want to leave a beginning to intermediate speaker with, who's trying to get on more stages consistently with colleges and associations? What are they missing?
Use what you have. Use one focus. You're going to be, you might get lulled into, I can speak about 8 different things. I'm telling you, I tell folks, if you're brand new, 1 to 3. 1, if you have to, 1 to 3, but one topic, serve one audience. Is it leadership? Is it belonging? Is it healthy relationships? Is it mental health? Is it personal development? Well, in college, it's less personal development. You're going to call it health and wellness. Just find one topic and serve deeply, or financial literacy also. One topic, serve it deeply, and you will thank Ron and I for being here years from now. One topic, serve it deeply. You could find one association that serves this topic. Serve it deeply. Join the association. Volunteer. Do educational sessions there. I'm telling you, this is literally what I did. I worked for a college. I spoke at conferences, and I did that for free. And then that's where I got a lot of my chops, was speaking at conferences. I leave a conference, I'm walking out of a room, someone asked me what I wanted to do when I was leaving the room. Boom, long story short, that led to my very first speaking engagement for $700 in McAllen, Texas, at UT, the one which is now Texas A&M Rio Grande Valley. At the time, it was University of Texas Pan Am. So I'll forever love them and the folks that decided to take a chance on me. That is one of the easiest ways to lead to a speaking engagement if you're on your own. Go to where people pay, serve the highest level, and then be good when they're ready to cut a check. And before then, actually.
Oh, dude, that's huge. That's gold. Hey, look, if you're listening to this, you made it to this point, take the video, put it in the chat GPT, get the transcript, look at the outline. There's a lot of gems in here. that you can use that Stan has given you from 15 years of consistently doing 50 to 60 colleges a year on a repeat basis. These are long-term clients that he's built. So he's not, having to, even though he does some cold outreach and books new relationships, but a lot of it is repeat business because he's good. He does what he says. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
Man, I think I'm an extrovert. Sometimes I'm bashful, but I believe being an introvert is just, or being shy. It's code for people who are uncomfortable in situations they can't control. At least that's what I'm telling myself. Maybe I think I'm trying to be smart by creating something that definition doesn't exist. I'm an extrovert. Everyone would say it, so I'm going to say it.
All right, cool, man. Well, hey, Stan, I appreciate you taking the time to hop on with this. A lot of great gems. I'm still in the three things. I'm going to engage, entertain, and educate a lot more by telling better stories. And thank you again. I appreciate it.
Man, you are the best, Ron. I appreciate you big time.
That's cool.